Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the LTC Bowling Show. I am your host, J.R. Raymond, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about the mental side of dealing with bad ball reaction and trying to understand, is it bad ball reaction or is it poor execution? I'll be back in a minute to talk about that. All right, so the hardest thing to decipher is whether you're just throwing it bad or do I just have bad ball reaction? Because the old saying is you can't outbowl bad ball reaction. And now it's so much true today compared to what it was back in the day. Back in the day, it wasn't very true because we didn't have the variables that we have today. Back in the day, pretty much everybody was throwing the same ball. We're talking 30 years ago. Everybody was throwing the same urethane or rubber or polyester or whatever, bowling ball for the most part. There was only a few of them, and they kept making newer type ones. But it wasn't until reactive resin came out that people really, that the variables really didn't start to take over. And then once those variables took over, and then we got those newfangled lane machines that we have now, that's when we really started to see the variables come into play. Because now, not only do you have, super bowling balls, but we have super patterns that can be manipulated and changed into anything in any which way, to the micro inch. I mean, these things, they can put oil in any part of the lane at any time. Now, and then you've got other types of variables that come into play, like the weather, the humidity, the topography, other bowling balls that are going down the lane. Things are they're ever changing. So now, today, more than ever, matching up with your equipment is so important. Your physical game and making sure you're throwing good shots is equally as important. But if I could choose throwing great shots or having the correct ball in my hand, today, right now, I'm picking the bowling ball. Because the bowling ball can make up for execution issues. That you have your room for error by having the correct bowling ball in your hand. The correct bowling ball in your hand can allow you to miss a couple to the left or a couple to the right, or miss it at the bottom, or hit up on it too much and still do the right thing. And that right there, that is why you see, lightning in a bottle at times from day to day. Some people, you hear it all the time from, petty bowlers where they'll say, geez, how did that guy end up winning? Like, he never wins anything. Well, that's why, because they just happen to have that day where they got the right ball in their hand and everything just kind of lined up, and they didn't have to do much other than throw it down the lane, and it did all the rest of the work for them for the most part. So you see stuff like that happen more nowadays than you did back in the day. You didn't see that back in the day because back in the day, the best bowlers were the best bowlers. Now, I'm not taking anything away from everybody that's bowling today. You still need to be able to manipulate your hand. You still need to be able to change tilts and rotations and do, vary your ball speed and everything else. But back in the day, the only way to get different ball reaction was exactly that. There wasn't a whole lot of changing balls. Everybody was throwing that, black urethane ball at the time. Was it a different, which brand was it? Was it an AMF ball? Was it, the hammer ball? Was it a fat ball? What was it? So we didn't have, or I shouldn't say I wasn't a part of that era. I grew up at the very end of the urethane era, where my first bowling ball was a black rhino, one of the original urethane rhinos by Brunswick. And I loved that thing. And I could hook the lane with it. And that's saying something, because if I were to throw it on today's conditions now, that thing's probably going 60 feet. Granted, I don't know where it's at. It's probably still up in Gaylord, up in northern Michigan, where I grew up. It's probably there somewhere, or in somebody's basement, one or the other. But that's the hardest thing is today it's trying to find the right ball to match up with the pattern. Now, and there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just having the right ball, but it is an awful lot of having the right rotation. Because you could have the right ball in your hand without having the right rotation on the ball, and you only have 50% of the matchup. So you score 210 a game, but if you have the right rotation coming off of your hand, now you could score 220 a game. So there's little variables that do still take place, and with minor hand changes and stuff like that in today's game. But when we're having a day where we just can't seem to get anything going, where it seems like we're bowling in a phone booth, basically, where we're shackled up. If we miss a little right, the ball goes 60 feet. We miss a little left and the ball overhooks. We've got no room for error. And then the shots that we do throw really good and get there, they don't strike every single time. So what do we do when that happens? Do we just kind of take our lumps and just move on? No, I don't think so. I think what we need to do is make a decision. We need to decide at that point, all right, am I throwing it good? Am I throwing it? Do I have command over where the ball goes? Is my execution okay? And even if it's only at like 80%, I would say yes, your execution is fine. So at that point, you definitely need to be changing balls. We need to figure out a different bowling ball that can go down the lane, and can give you a little bit of room for error, because that's always what we're looking for. If we don't have a bowling ball that's going to allow us to miss a little bit each way, and sometimes we just get on conditions that don't allow it for anybody. Sometimes you'll never see. Sometimes you'll watch, a cut be 100 under. Just because the lanes are just that difficult, there is really no matching up, and at that point, a little bit more luck comes into play, because now it's a lot about, who crossed over the most and who got those breaks when they needed them. Who got that key Brooklyn on a double to cause a three bagger. Stuff like that. You see it all too often when the lanes get too difficult. But there's also, most times, even when they are super difficult like that, there's always one or two people that run away from the field. While everybody else is struggling to shoot 200, you have a couple of guys that are bowling 220 every game. So there's a big 30-pin, 40-pin swing there from the top to the bottom of the cut. And that happens just about everywhere. And what's the difference there? Well, those people that bowled 220 every game, they bowled really well. They threw the ball and executed really well, but they also had the right ball in their hand. So it's a combination of both. If you have a ball in your hand that makes you feel like you're in a phone booth, you're in trouble. You're going to have a hard time. I don't care what the scoring pace is. You're going to have a hard time. And that's why, for me, I've always tend to prefer the more difficult patterns, because when they are more difficult, when I have those days, I can still compete. I can still give myself a chance to win, because eventually I will figure it out enough to get myself there, most times. So when they're easy, when they're soft and I can't figure it out, when the scoring pace is high and everybody's 230 and I can't seem to break 210, I'm shooting 2-0, between 2-0 and 210 every game, that's when it's frustrating, and that's when it's irritating to me, because even when my execution is good, if I don't have the right ball or the right rotation or the right speed, and that all comes into play. Don't get me wrong, it's not just bowling balls, but that all comes into play when it's about trying to match up. It's not 100% bowling balls. If I'm going to put math on it, or if I'm going to put percentages on it, I'm going to say the bowling ball is about 60% of the equation, and then you have 20% your hand manipulation there, and 20% speed adjustment. So between speed, rotation, and the correct bowling ball, you put those three things together, it's dynamite. You have the world. But if you're missing one of those key pieces, especially if you're missing the bowling ball, you're pretty well screwed. You have basically no chance, especially if the scoring pace is high. So here's my suggestion. If you're out bowling and you feel like you're bowling in a phone booth where you have no miss room to the right, you have no miss room to the left, I think it's about that time where you just need to shut your angles down. You need to play as straight as you possibly can and just get a benchmark ball. Try to find anything you can in your bag that you know exactly what it's going to do. And then just try to execute as best you can and grind until the lanes open up to a point where you can then do what you want to do with the bowling ball. So for me, that equals going to something, either urethane, playing straight in the track area, or it equals me using a 2-inch Eruption Pro Blue, basically doing the same thing as urethane. Those are my options. When I'm absolutely at a loss and I don't know what to do, that's what I'm going to do until I feel like I gain a little bit of momentum, with my execution, playing straighter like that, and B, with feeling like I can consistently at least hit the pocket that's when I'll finally settle down a little bit, start to see ball motion a little bit better, and I can make the move to then score higher. And so that's what I always suggest to any of my students is when you feel like you're struggling, when you feel like you don't know what the right ball is, generally it's doing the opposite of what you think. For me, when I'm really struggling and say usually my biggest struggle is when the front's hooked so much, when the very front of the lane is on fire and I have to try and force the ball through there. Usually what happens is if I force it through there, it never hooks. And if I throw it good or normal, it hooks too early. So I get caught in between. And what my move generally is thinking that, okay, I got to find something cleaner. Well, the problem with finding something cleaner is now it's clean, but then it's too crazy down lane and I can't get it to slow down. So generally, my move lately with that type of situation is simply to grab the biggest, strongest bowling ball I have and blend the entire lane out. I'm going to let the ball hook early, and then it's going to blend the middle of the lane, and it's not going to overreact down lane. So then I can shut my angles down from basically any part of the lane, and that's just like using that 2-inch pin for the most part. If that doesn't work, we're kind of in trouble, but I'm just trying to give you some options here when you do run into situations like this where you're not really sure what to do. These are kind of this is like the checklist that I go through. Generally speaking, when I'm in that grind mode and I'm trying to figure out, what to do, and I'm just throwing the ball in the track area, trying to control the pocket, eventually the lanes will open up the last few games, and I know then I can grab a different type of bowling ball, generally like a pin down asymmetric ball. Once the lanes start to kind of cliff a little bit, and what I mean by cliff is when the oil in the middle starts to be a little bit more than the oil to the outside. So that's when you can move left with something. For me, it's pin down asymmetric balls, and I can go to the middle of the lane and play that oil in the middle of the lane, and I can generally use the dry to the right and create a little room for error by, now I'm playing the pattern in the lanes versus trying to just find ball reaction. And at that point, once I know what the lanes are giving me, then you can make the proper adjustments. So once I get to that point, usually I'm okay, and that's why you'll see me. I might struggle the first game. Well, generally the first game is struggling because of anxiety, trying to be I'm a little too amped up to start. Doesn't matter what I'm bowling; it could just be a little 3-game sweeper. I love the game. I love the sport. It gets me going. So that's generally my first issue is getting a little bit anxious and not getting my feet under me, not settling down, and so it's struggle. And then and then it's trying to figure out ball reaction from there. So once I figure that out, I'm in pretty good shape. And once it gets to the point where I can just move left and I know I've got hook to the right and I know I've got hold in the middle or at least a little bit, then it gets easier. So, my suggestion is to just try to find your comfort zone. When you're really struggling, try to figure out what it is you have to do to get into your comfort zone and, just get there. Just do what you've got to do, grind until the lanes give you what you want to see. If they never give you what you want to see, that's when you just kind of, oh well, on to the next. There's not a whole lot you can do, and it's going to happen more often than you think. So I don't want you to get discouraged. I don't want you to think that, I don't want you to think you're going to see this every time. And if you are seeing this every time right now, you need to start doing some experimenting with some surface adjustments, even layouts. I mean, if you're somebody who likes to use an awful lot of strong layouts and you're seeing this a lot, I'd start drilling some bowling balls with some big, longer pins just to see some weaker layouts. So that's all I got for you today. I just wanted to run through this for you. Just a quick little podcast here for you. So everybody listen, I really appreciate it. Everybody watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Podcast listeners, make sure, please hit that, support button. Try to support as much as you can. Anybody else, head over to patreon.com/traction control. You can support over there as well. But for now, just make sure you share. I don't have a big marketing group or anything, so I kind of depend on word of mouth. So spread this out. Let people hear it if you think this is worthwhile. And otherwise, I'm out of here. We will see you guys next time for the LTC Bowling Show.